right, good evening. Welcome to the January 28th meeting of the Lake Forest Historic Preservation Commission. The commission's before you tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, neighbors, and architects to continue the tradition that was established nearly 40 years ago in this community. That tradition is a review process that allows community members to work together to preserve the qualities and unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and democratic meetings, and to achieve that goal, meeting procedures have been adopted by the commission, and a copy of the procedures is available at the back of the room on each agenda. As always, it's the intent of the commission to help manage the development and growth of the city of Lake Forest with a keen sense of preserving the historic structures, open space in the city for all its present and future residents. Our goal is to move each petition before us tonight through the process as quickly as possible, while balancing the interests of the petitioners, neighboring property owners, and the larger community. And we'll start, as we usually do, with an introduction of the commissioners.
Wells Wheeler.
Susan Atkinson.
John Travers.
Kurt Peretz.
Robert Elfie.
Jim Preschlag.
All right, and our first order of business this evening is consideration and approval of the minutes. We have minutes this evening from both our September 24th meeting and also our July meeting. I don't know if anyone has any comments to any of those minutes, and if anyone does.
I have no comments.
No comments? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve both of those.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Preschlag. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by, sorry, Commissioner Alfie, just going. Brain dead on
Yeah, that's right. Well, I moved chairs. So
Who are
that
you? Long day.
At least you didn't
All
call
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Whew, we're on a roll. All right,
You didn't call me Mary Ellen anyway.
could have happened. All right, consideration of request for certificate of appropriateness for 815 Barbary Lane. This is to approve modifications to attached garage and driveway and construction of a new pool and pool equipment shed. A building scale variance is also requested, so please come on up and introduce yourself. I'll ask the commissioners if anyone has any conflict or ex parte contact on it.
No.
I see none. Great.
My name is Thomas Rajkovic. I'm an architect that's done a number of projects here in town, and I represent the clients John and Bridget Doheny, whose house is located at 815 Barbary. And I'm doing the project with Craig Bergman, who's handling the landscape, as well as has been a primary mover in the issue of the decisions about the pool that you'll see in a moment. To sort of begin, this is the project as it sat when I was approached. The Dohenys purchased the house about 3.5 years ago and went through an extensive restoration of the house. It's a colonial revival house built in 1927. They did a meticulous job actually restoring it, and at that time, and hopefully this pointer will work, they constructed a small two-car garage structure detached from the house to provide accommodations for a car, and a motor court immediately adjoining that structure. And on this image, north is up, so the motor court is here just to the east of the garage, between the house and the garage. In the ensuing years since they did this, the Dohenys realized that they have a family, a wonderful family, and they decided that they very much wanted to have a swimming pool, particularly for their kids, but for them as well. And so discussions took place with Craig Bergman about where a pool might best be located. And the south portion of the property across here is at a rather low elevation, and so there's a tendency, again, across this portion of the property to have ponding occur. And so as a way of avoiding creating hardscape in a location where there would have had to have been elevational changes made, Craig recommended to the clients, to the Dohenys, the possibility that the pool would move somewhere in this area, possibly immediately south of the existing motor court, or possibly replacing the existing motor court. And it was at that time that the Dohenys approached us to join the team. What we looked at was what impact that the combination of motor court and pool would have, and it became clear fairly quickly that the architecture of the existing garage was such that it combined so nicely with the house that, in fact, making it more like a pool house, particularly as it would be seen from the street, would actually enhance the condition on Barbary. At the same time, it became clear that if the pool was located south of that motor court instead, that there were still going to be these issues having to do with water runoff. And so the decision was taken that the pool should actually occur between the house and the garage. When that decision was made, then it became a question of how do you then continue to use any aspect of that garage for vehicular storage. The first thought immediately, of course, is that, and here's a neighborhood photograph to give you a sense of our site. The first thought was that we didn't want to have, from the Barbary Lane streetscape, garage doors visible. Your group wouldn't have approved it, and we wouldn't have proposed it, rightly so. The second possibility was that a garage door could be placed on the west elevation. The adjoining house to the west has garage doors that are along the east surface of its house, and so in fact we would have had garage door facing garage door. But my clients were particularly sensitive to the impact that that might have on the neighbor. They spoke with the neighbor, and as we looked at it, we concluded that putting the garage doors there, even though it wouldn't have an impact on the street, would not be potentially the optimal solution to the problem. At the same time, we looked at figuring out how do you not change the grade as one moves around the garage to accommodate a garage door anywhere else, the only side left being the south side. And one of Craig's associates pointed out, because they worked on this project in its earlier iteration, that the foundations, in fact, for the garage were sufficiently low that if we were willing to take the floor slab of the garage out and lower it down, we would have almost no impact on the grade, the existing grade of the property here. So we could actually have the garage or the driveway circumnavigate the garage to the south and essentially put it out of view of sight of all the adjoining properties. And so it's difficult to see on this. It looked a lot easier when you saw it on a computer terminal in my office, but we're showing the red enlargement of the coach house there. We're suggesting an 8-foot enlargement of the coach house, which I'll explain in a moment, and a small pool equipment shed below that. As we created that south entrance for the garage and of necessity needed to have a lower floor level, the Doheny's preferred that we still be able to get access to that car stall from the pool terrace side. So if they were coming to that garage from their house, they wouldn't have to go all the way out and around. What that meant was that we needed a little extra space on the interior to accommodate that grade transition from first vestibule into the space. So this is the existing house as you see it from the street, again, built in 1927. It reminds one of the work of Edwin Hill Clark or Stanley Anderson. It's a handsome house that contributes, I think, beautifully to the streetscape. This is the existing condition. At the left, you see the one end of the existing house, and then you see the coach house, the existing garage, I should say, here to the right on the screen, and the current drive that leads into the motor court in the middle. One of the things that became apparent, and John Doheny discussed this with me a lot. He's a wonderful client insofar as he has a great eye for architecture, and he cares about it a lot, so he thinks about it a lot, is that the garage seemed somehow slightly off in its proportion. And the fact is that when we looked at it, one of the things we discovered is that the width of the garage, when it was designed in order to accommodate the two cars, is actually greater than its length. And yet the gable happens on the wide end of the building. And any good carpenter will tell you that you never gable a building across its short dimension. In fact, it's sort of the contrary to what you'd call carpenter economics. And so the idea of having the garage grow by 8 feet toward the main house actually allows us to elongate the gable just a bit and make it more consistent with the architecture of the original house. Here's a view of the motor court as it sits today, which we're proposing closing with a continuous garden wall to create the pool in the area there. This is a view of the landscape screening, some of which was done by Craig Bergman's office and some of which is mature landscape screening between the Doheny's residence and the house to the west. Through these trees here are the garage doors. I think there are 3 garage doors at the adjoining structure. And here's the location where we would route the new driveway through, and this will be the location for the pair of traditional hinged carriage doors to give access to the car stall. The other thing that came to mind is that we needed a place to locate a pool equipment shed, and currently the landscape had been designed with this beautiful dry-laid stone retaining wall, and it seemed as if that the presence of that stone wall could actually be given more of a reason for being if in fact the pool equipment shed occupied exactly that corner. And so, this is the site plan. So the pool equipment shed is there. This is now north pointing down. So the pool equipment shed's there. This area of the proposed modification of the garage is a powder room and a kitchenette to serve the pool, but also provides this pass-through to get into the vehicular stall with some stairs and space for the fire-rated door. The other thing that this pool equipment shed does is it serves as a little folly in the backyard, and the benefit of that, to my mind, is that even though there's a lot of mature landscape on the south of the property, this also provides a kind of a subtle screening element for these garage doors from any place in the rear of the property or on adjoining properties. So this is the structures. You'd see it from the street, and this line here, which you would have in your packet, represents the point beyond which we've added these 8 feet. So this portion of the structure is what's there currently. We're going to shift the window over and do 2 windows because proportionally it would be better for that elevation. This is the elevation of the west, and I would emphasize that this wall of the existing garage will be completely untouched. We're not modifying it, we're not relocating it, nothing's being done to it at all, other than that the floor slab behind it will be at grade level rather than currently it's up a bit because it's at the motor court level. We're proposing also a masonry garden wall here with a planting bed in front of it, and then that's the pool equipment folly. It has a little higher hat roof on it intentionally. In other words, we're doing it to make that more pavilion-like so that it creates this kind of ensemble of structures that surround the pool and help give it a kind of an intimacy of containment. This is the view now that will be seen from the house. This is facing east, but also I would emphasize that this condition here is what cars that are driving by on Barbary, to the extent that they see it above the masonry garden wall, will see this rather than that pair of overhead garage doors that you saw in the earlier the photographic slide of what exists. The intention here was to make it more domestic in character, to have it relate more immediately to the architecture of the main house, and to have it a little less like the kind of utilitarian condition of a garage. And then these are the garage doors as seen from the back. In the foreground right here would be, but in front of where this drawing is taken from, would be the pool equipment shed. All the materials match precisely the existing materials. It's a pretty straightforward thing to do. Slate roof, copper gutters and downspouts, true divided light windows, mill shop made. Same thing with the carriage doors. My clients have been pretty meticulous in everything they've done there. I mean, it was kind of a delight to see how well they did everything the first time, so all of this will be done to an equivalent quality standard. And now Craig's going to say a word or two about how all that comes together with landscape.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see familiar faces behind the counter again. Interestingly, I think that the solution, now that the garage doors have changed to the south, it will be a better finished product than what the Doheny's had originally. We did have to come up in front of HPC for this initial garage, and one of the things that I was doing is using a landscape component to try to link the detached garage to the original architecture was to create those garden walls that reached in to reduce the size of the motor court as seen from Barbary Lane. What is I think a great add is that the driveway that wraps around the, whoops, I just did something. I thought I was pressing the pointer. Tom.
There it is.
Thank you. One of the things I think is really important to realize is with the lowering of the garage floor, the surface area of the driveway actually gets to be dropped and be much less prevalent or prominent from the Barbary Lane view. As we had talked about, as Tom had talked to, this established grove of Norway spruce. When there was talk of garage doors over here, there was no way to get in and out of the garage. And because we have had this fully established for 3.5 years, all of the underplanting of the spruce has created an evergreen wall between the two properties. So we didn't want to jeopardize that, and the Doheny's had already paid for it. So by bringing the driveway in here, and we fought very hard to have this driveway construction not kill this old redbud tree. It's doing just fine. For the same reason, we like the idea of keeping the drive at the lower grade so there's less fill on any of the root zone of the old mature trees. One of the things that I think that you want to, the bottom one, right? Side, all right. Mark, and I'll be ready for our next talk. One of the things that we're doing now is we're closing the aperture of the view of the activity that goes on behind the garden wall. So we would be recycling the hornbeams, which we are training to be an aerial hedge above the height of the wall. So there will be an additional architectural connection between the height of the main house block and the garage. And then also it makes for more privacy because of the scruffy woods between the barrier of the street and the facade of the hornbeams. There's a veil approach of concealing it, which makes it look much more subtle, much less new. One of the things about putting the pool within the confines of the old motor court is it reduces the size of a pool they could have. And the Doheny's were absolutely happy to have, in essence, a play pool instead of an athletic pool, because I made John swear, and Bridget agreed, that we were never going to put a pool in the backyard unless one of those big bur oaks died, because there are two massive, almost 48-inch bur oaks in the backyard. And the reason they're still there is because it can flood and because nobody's built anything in their root zone. So the imposition of the original garage and our stone wall that Tom had mentioned earlier, that has proven that there was no impact to the old trees because it's been a long enough time period. And therefore, we don't think that the old trees will have any problem with the new construction that's proposed. Interior of the motor court, the profile has changed. It's no longer gravel. As you saw in the original street view, there was a pair of brick columns here. There's also a pair of brick columns here. We're proposing to remove these two and just let this be more of a transparent green wall. And then the masonry walls will be at the west edge of the court and at the north end. And the original columns will stay here. So it's very much the same flavor that the previous HPC group has seen before. It's just we're giving a different purpose to that already created court. And we're ready for questions.
All right. Thank you. Now is an opportunity for staff report if we have them.
I don't have much to add. I do want to note that in the staff report, there is an incorrect reference. I believe the garage doors are referenced as currently being on the west elevation, so I just didn't want to confuse you. That was our error. You did receive, I believe, 3 emails from neighbors. 2 were at your place this evening in support of the petition. You do have findings in the staff report also in support of the petition. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. And on that note, are there any questions from any commissioners for either the petitioner or the staff?
I have a couple questions.
Fire away.
My first question, I think, is to staff, since I think they look at these calculations. Can you tell me if there is an increase in the impermeable surface area associated with this petition, and if so, what it might be?
I don't know the specific numbers. The only impervious area that's being added is the driveway that is extending around the west side of the garage to reach the garage doors, which will now be on the south elevation. I don't believe there's any other impervious surface that's being added.
So actually, isn't the gravel driveway pervious and the motor court changing from gravel to impervious? Craig, would you care to comment on that? Or am I just making that up?
No, the gravel drive is a pervious type of gravel drive, like the original one that led to the motor court. And then the current motor court has a brick detail and a gravel over asphalt pavement. So the current court is impervious. The gravel drive that from the original circle drive to the court is pervious. And because we're removing a good section of that, that almost compensates for reaching the west side of the garage. So the only impervious, the only additional paved area that happens to be pervious is actually the bay, as Kathy had said, right in front of the coach house door.
Got it.
Could I follow up with the gentleman? So I'm trying to understand, and I've had some difficulty with the Doheny residents' proposed impervious surface area calculation for HPC review document. And so I have been looking then at, there are 3 areas defined. The second area is area of landscape to be modified for pool addition, total impervious surface area of 4,549 square feet. Is that an addition to previous impervious surface
No,
area?
It's inclusive of old, which we consider as driveway, and new, which we're considering as added impervious. So the 4,000 feet is inclusive of the pool patio and the pool and the new driveway section.
And so that, all of that, what you're talking about, will be impervious, right?
The 4,500?
Yes.
Yeah. But remember that over 2/3 of that was already impervious in the calculation
And why was it impervious before?
because it was driveway.
Well,
In the motor court.
Okay, so just to back up, I think what we're really looking at here is mostly the courtyard, maybe. And so, was the courtyard impervious or pervious before? I walked on it and it's
The
appeared to be
courtyard
gravel.
has always been impervious
It's always been impervious, even though
Yes.
it's covered with gravel.
because it has blacktop underneath the gravel.
It's
In
blacktop
the
underneath it.
courtyard. This is the loop of the driveway that is pervious. It was constructed originally as pervious, and we're saying that the calculation brings us to here or somewhere in here. This is per the original gravel pervious driveway that took you from here to here. So this is the add. This is the only add of, we're calling it because Kathy said, give us the worst case scenario. Though this is pervious gravel, we're calling it impermeable paving.
Right, and so my question then is, what is the increase in impervious surface area associated with this project? In numbers?
Tom, this is 20 feet right here.
26 feet from the base of the coach house or the pool house down to the pool court. 26 feet.
So 26 times 6.
600 feet.
It's under 200 feet because it's the shed addition, the little square building, and the paving where the spa is right here. This is the add of truly impervious from what was there before.
What?
This
what
building
Yeah.
and the patio surface, the spa and the patio surface. Because remember, the garage here, the add-on, is going into the old driveway. The pool's going into the old driveway. And this was already driveway before.
Okay. I'm not sure I understand you, but
Let me be clear.
yeah.
How can I
So
clarify?
I was just referring to. I was just referring to the sheet which says proposed impervious surface area for HPC review. And I just was not sure how this related to the existing state to yield. That's all.
You're trying to look
Usually what
for-
we see is we see what it was before and then we see what
Yeah,
it was
I
again.
got it.
And
And all
here
we've
we're just
given you is
seeing
the
what
comprehensive.
appears to be a 4,000 square foot increase, but you're telling me it's not a 4,000 square foot
Correct.
increase.
I'm
Because
telling you it's
the gravel I was
approximately-
walking on in the courtyard is actually underlaid
with asphalt.
with asphalt.
It is completely landlocked and impenetrable for water to soak through. That's why we have the drains and the paving.
Okay, I don't want to beat the thing to death, but I'd like to ask you another question if I can.
Sure.
Have you given consideration to alternative materials that could be used in the project which would decrease the impervious surface area from that which is currently proposed?
By maintaining the flavor of the driveway that worked as a permeable surface, we think that the driveway is the most pervious solution there is, even more so than permeable pavers.
Sure.
And the you know, when you start doing permeable paving with pool decks, you're dealing with particulate gravel that gets in the pool and on the deck and on bare feet. So I don't know if there's an alternative, because the reason paving is considered permeable is there's a gap for water to permeate through, and that gap gets filled with grit. And, you know, for a pool scenario, I don't know if that would be as, you know, ideally desirable. So, but I think that we have an incredible, because of the size of the property, we have an incredible amount of permeable space to absorb the moisture and even ponding. That's proven with the old oaks. And we're not contributing to anything that we don't know about. I mean, we're working in the zone we've already proven works for permeability or impermeability.
I got you. So to sum up, when I interpreted your chart as showing an increase in the impermeable surface area of 4,549 square feet, I just misinterpreted your drawing,
Or I did not present it to you clear enough for you to understand.
or a combination thereof.
I think it was more the latter.
Okay, thank you. I had one more question, if I could. Sorry. And that was, I was, as their chairman often points out, it's one thing that's really encouraged is for people to reach out to their neighbors. It's wonderful that in this case the petitioner reached out to the neighbors, and we received a number of great comments about this project. I had one question. Has the petitioner reached out to the neighbors directly to the west, which I think is house number 771, which would appear to be the neighbor most likely to be affected by
I think
this?
Tom can answer best because he's the most current on this.
The Doheny's had a lot of interaction with that neighbor even in the earlier petition because there were concerns that that neighbor expressed at the time. And so, in fact, when this project first bubbled up, the idea of putting a pool there, they immediately approached him and met him face to face and had a good conversation. And he expressed no great enthusiasm for the possibility that the door might end up on the west side. I mean, he said, I'd rather you not do that. And that was when the process kicked in of trying to figure out, well, how do we keep the grade down to go to the only other place we could go with a vehicular door, which would be the south. And that sort of serendipitous realization that that slab could be lowered to a point where the elevation of the drive didn't need to be changed. And so the Doheny's then went in front of him again and explained that to him and said, in fact, your view will remain exactly what it is. There's going to be a gravel driveway, but there's a lot of low growth there, which you saw in the one slide. There's going to be, and other than that, the garage that he looks at is going to be identical because we're not even touching that elevation. So, sorry, this takes a moment. Well, that image I think helps to see here. So if you look in this area here, all along here, some of that's the new understory planting that Craig Bergman did in 2011, and then some of it, the mature trees, are landscape that have been there substantially longer than that. But this understory obviously provides a really good screen, and as I say, that rear wall of this, as you see it here, remains completely unchanged. We're not touching that. And it was precisely that interaction. They engaged in that dialogue from the beginning. In fact, I've been in front of this body before, and one of the things that becomes clear is the importance of interacting with neighbors. And when they brought me onto the team, I expressed that to them, and they said, well, we want to interact with the neighbors. I mean, we live next to them. We have a family. It's a neighborhood. And they were great about it. I mean, in fact, they frequently called me and said, we're going to go talk to them. So the initiative was there throughout.
So what you're telling me is that your understanding is the Doheny's did contact the neighbor. In fact, the project has been somewhat modified to reflect neighbor concerns. And I don't know whether the neighbors are here today or not, but that's what's happened, is they've been in contact with them.
Yes, and when they explained that we were able to come up with a solution where the door would be placed here, he said he did not have any objection. Obviously, that was a solution that they essentially went to a lot of lengths to make that happen. It's not a particularly convenient way to get into that garage any longer, but it has the least impact on anybody, consequently.
So in this slide that you're showing where the edge of the grass is that approximately the edge of the gravel driveway, or is there approximately? And then also, is the existing grade at that edge approximately where it'll be, you're basically finishing the new driveway grading to that?
The turf grade, as you see it, is the turf grade of the new driveway.
Got it.
Because any kind of changing of that grade would affect the root zones of those big old spruce.
Thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner or the staff?
Question?
Sure.
I'm not understanding this. Great, where there, is there a fence or something? Where is the pool enclosure? How is that dealt with? I can't see that on here.
The pool enclosure is the wall, and then conforming gates where there is no
Well,
wall.
on the, well, maybe on this drawing, it
On the south
shows,
side, there's an,
on the south side, it just says the 2-foot dry planting bed wall, which is not where the actual wall is. Is that right, or?
if you look here, this black line right here,
Okay,
this is a fence.
that's the 5-foot.
Yep,
Masonry
that's the
fence.
pool enclosure. There's a self-closing latch gate here.
All right,
in
it
here.
just doesn't show on this one
Yeah,
architecture.
it's labeled on this,
And then
on the full plan.
it turns around and goes back to the house.
Yes. And that allows us to actually plant a hedge and have the hedge grow through the fence over time.
It's a very nice scheme. I like it a lot.
The other advantage that provided was that by having masonry walls on the two sides, you're doing something that connects to the architecture, rather than having a kind of elephant cage that frequently needs to be done in the pool enclosure. So half of all the enclosure, more than half, is accomplished with sort of architectural elements rather than iron work.
This is actually fencing here. This is ornamental.
I guess I was misled. This one, there's no, it doesn't show on this one.
Yeah, that's just. All right, any other questions of the commissioners?
You know, I just want to confirm something too with you, because it seems obvious on your drawings, but you are essentially going from a 4-car garage home to 3 because you're eliminating one stall in this new pool house. Is that true?
That's correct, and they're gonna end up with, they'll have, the stall will be just big enough, even though there's the store, the kitchen and the little powder room for the pool. The stall will be big enough to store some of the pool toys and that kind of bicycles, things like that, but they're giving up part of the ability to have a 2-car garage there, and that was something that we looked at, but the only way to accomplish that second stall would have been, you know, an enlargement that would have had to have gone to the west, and then it would have negatively impacted the trees. Again, we enlarged it to the east because I think it helps the gable, the proportion of the structure, but we couldn't do that any further. You wouldn't have had room for the pool.
So that is a nice advantage, and you're also kind of taking some traffic off of that driveway then, that way. Yeah. Okay, and then I just wanted to check with you too. Is it true divided light windows in the garage? In the coach house? True divided light?
The drawings that were, the working drawings that were created for that structure, I didn't build that structure, but the working drawings that were created for that structure indicated true divided lights, yes.
Nice, okay.
And everything we do will be true divided light to match.
And slate roof too, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Wells?
The indication for the 5-foot masonry wall, and there's somewhere else I'm seeing 48-inch wall. Is there a?
No, it's a 5-foot wall that runs connecting the house from there across. There's an offset in it, so that connecting across, and then another one running along the back, connecting the pool storage equipment shed to the garage.
Right,
So they
and
are 5
that's
feet tall.
intended to be a 5-foot wall.
That's correct.
On Craig's drawing, it's called out as a 48-inch wall.
It's a 5-foot wall.
Okay, good. And I think, yeah, adding the length to the coach house to the garage is going to solve a lot of things. The garage right now looks fairly awkward.
It's truncated a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a nice job.
All right, now's an opportunity for any public comment, if there is any public comment on this. And I see none, so now we can deliberate. Any deliberations from commissioners?
Sure, I think with this element, I think you really tie that garage into the house. And I think the design is well thought out. You're using quality materials, and it almost looks like it should be there. You know, you tie all the elements together, even with the pool house in the corner. The design's really well thought out, and I think it really enhances your property. And actually, from the west, I think the neighbor's going to enjoy that view a lot more. because you've got the nice little, folly there now to look at and some enhanced screenings and, it's a nice job. Really well done.
Anybody else?
I concur with Susan. I think I'm in support of the project.
Great.
I also support the project. I had one last question, though, and I saw some new calculations come across. Is there still a requirement for a building scale variance here, or did... Sorry.
Checking.
Couldn't remember. 172 feet over was the final calculation. So there is a minor building scale variance, and I believe you do have findings in your staff report for that as well, in support of that.
I was wondering if I could make a
Sure,
brief
please.
consideration on the basis of
Sure.
the building scale variance. I also find the project to be very attractive, and I really enjoyed seeing the home as it is today and imagining as how it will be in the future. I did want to comment on building scale variances, since they are important and frequently subject of some debate in City Council. I believe that under ordinance, the Historic Preservation Commission may, but is not required to recommend, and the City Council may, but is not required to approve a building scale variance for projects under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission, as long as the project is consistent with the design standards of the City Code. And accordingly, this commission has significant discretion in recommending building scale variances, and the City Council has significant discretion in approving such variances. I believe that in practice, this commission and the City Council exercise their discretion in recommending and approving building scale variances in a variety of circumstances, including, as in this case, circumstances where an owner may wish to update a residence to better reflect our current high standards of utility and comfort, and the increase in bulk is not great and is otherwise mitigated as addressed in building scale variance standards 2 through 4. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Let's see, any other considerations, requests, deliberations? I'm going to call for motion.
May I give a motion?
Please do.
Based on the findings detailed in the applicable staff report dated January 28, 2015, which document that the project complies with the standards in Chapter 51, Historic Preservation of the City Code, and with the criteria for building scale variance, and incorporating the materials submitted and presented by the petitioner and the testimony and the deliberations of the commission at this public meeting as additional findings, I move that the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness for 815 East Barberry Lane, approving the modification in addition to the detached garage or coach house, the addition of a pool in the courtyard, a shed to house pool equipment, and modifications to the driveway consistent with the application request presented to the commissioners by the petitioner. And recommend to City Council that it approve the requisite building scale variance, allowing square footage on the property to exceed the allowable square footage by 3%, or about 172 square feet. And that this commission condition its approval on the conditions of approval enumerated in the 5 numbered paragraphs on pages 5 and 6 of the applicable staff report.
Seconded.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Travers and seconded by Commissioner Preschlack. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hey, you did it. Congratulations. Nice project. We look forward to seeing that get built. All right, our next agenda item is a consideration of a request for a certificate of appropriateness for the Deer Path Inn, 255 Illinois Road, to approve the demolition of the garden room and construction of a replacement conservatory, modifications to the east entrance, landscape and hardscape enhancements, and signage updates. I believe we've all seen something on this before, so I know there is no ex parte conflict or contact
Unless eating there.
or any of that stuff. So when you're ready, come on up and introduce what you got to show us today.
Craig's staying with me.
Excellent. He's got the,
Yeah, right.
the clicker going now, so.
So, hi. My name is Mark Nauer, president of Nauer Incorporated, the architects for the renovation of the Deer Path Inn. Last year, we talked about the restoration of the facades of the building. Went through the steel windows, the wood windows on the building, doors and hardware, the stone and brick masonry, all the wood trim and the stucco, all of that, copper gutters and downspouts. So we went through all of that. A couple things that we briefly touched on that we're going to go into further detail today are, as you can see up on the screen, the garden room replacement. We'll show you some before and what we are hoping are after. Pictures of that. The bar entrance, the landscape and hardscape design, which I've got the cavalry here for Craig. He told me I don't know the difference between Boston ivy and English ivy, and he's right. So, and then lastly, the signage on the building. So, so let's dig right in here to the garden room replacement. So this is what the garden room replacement looks like today. Maybe a little less snow than when this photo was taken. It's probably melted a little bit. The garden room itself looks like it was carpenter designed and carpenter built. The structure, the roof structure, bifurcates 4 of the most important arched windows, which are completely covered in the English room. No one sees them today. They've been covered with drapery for years because what you see is, oh, there we go, is all of this that is just, it's a bit of a disaster today. This is the other side of it as well. So we are proposing to demolish this structure, and we've come up with a design for an English, very traditional English conservatory, which is appropriate to the architecture and the design of the building. Because this is going to be used for dining and the occupant load, it will be considerable as it is today. The air handling equipment to manage that occupant load is a consideration. So what we've come up with in this design is actually 2 structures here. One with a parapet that will house the mechanical equipment. To give you some idea of the extent of the details that we've gone to on this project, we're actually building custom mechanical units, rooftop units, that will be housed within this parapet, if you will. We're also proposing to plant that parapet and put a lattice roof over top of it, because both this floor and the floor above, the 2nd and 3rd floor, have guest rooms that will look out into the courtyard over the garden room itself. Then there is this conservatory lean-to structure, if you will, with a sloped roof that has been designed by and be built by an English conservatory company called Town and Country Conservatories. And they've taken this further into additional detailing that you saw in your packet. I can go through some of those details now. And I'm running on empty on, there we go. So this is the parapet, where we're proposing to clad this in the same aluminum brake metal that there is used on the bottom of the windows here, with a stile and rail framework, also out of aluminum, and then a lattice, which is the same dimensions as the lead cames in the building, so that it helps tie all of this together. Now, our goal is not to make this look like it's always been there, but as all English conservatories, to make it look like it is an addition, but an appropriate addition to the building. So we are also proposing here, and the pointer's not working, the lead cane windows, which are one of the major historic elements of the building.
Mark, you could use the mouse to.
There we go. Very good. Yes. So that's my hand. This is all glass. so that the light comes into the conservatory. This section through it, you can see here. The parapet structure is supported by 3 interior columns, which have decoration on them, both a plinth, a capital, and a base element. The rooftop unit sits here. There is a wood trellis over top, a planting area here. There are and some decorative finials and cresting around the parapet. These are Town and Country's drawings. The 4 doors align on center with the existing arched window doors so that there is continuity in the design and also traffic flow operationally. These are more of those details. And then the roof structure itself from Town and Country. Okay. The second change that we would like to make to the building is replacing the awning structure that is over the bar entrance on the east side of the building. So today, that's what it looks like. This is an interesting picture because you'll notice that the canopy, again, bifurcates windows. The hearth room right inside of the bar right here is the hearth room window. So you never want to sit in that room and look out that window, because what you're looking at is the structure and awning for the canopy itself. So our goal was to deal with that. One of our other goals was also to create a more permanent structure than something that's temporary and looks like it's just bolted onto the building. This canopy here to the south or the left in the photograph is actually over a hard structure that is there today that's over the stairs that come down here. And then there is this sort of plastic curtain that we're also looking at getting rid of. So this room, we're proposing to fix the canopy bifurcating this window as well as this window. This is the view from the hearth room. Lovely. Mm-hmm. So we're going to fix all that. So here's what we're proposing. I'd like to take credit for this, but Erin, who's with Craig's office, is here tonight, and she actually came up with this idea. So, but it's a brilliant idea. So the idea was is to create a heavy timber structure that is the same proportions as the lintels over the windows, as well as the faux half timbering on the building, so the proportions are right. Some of that timber exists today in the hard structure that's over the stairs in this area. We're proposing to put a copper roof over that, as opposed to the awning structure. Copper gutters and downspouts, lattice here so that we can grow some planting up, still give us some protection all year, but not a sheet of plastic. And this structure would also have a copper roof on it, copper gutters and downspouts, and then the home for the sign. This is a section through it, this is the elevation that we're proposing. We added a light fixture in here as well, so that when you look through the hearth room, there's a nice glow there, indicating what's going on outside, as well as you see that from the street. And then a section. There is a portion of this roof existing roof structure that would be cut back. Because presently, this roof structure extends right here to about this first casement window, to the first sash. Here's a section through it. Okay, so that leads me into the next phase of this, which is the landscape and hardscape, which Craig is going to take over from here. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. So, we were asked to look at the entire landscape scope of the property. So I'll just kind of show you how we broke the the pieces up, and then I'll go back and review each of them. So one of the things that we were very curious about when looking at the property was, does the parking lot really belong to Deer Path Inn, or is it somebody else's? You know, and it is actually part of the hotel land. So first and foremost, you know, we're dealing with both sides, the east and the west side of Bank Lane, with the property. We had areas of concentration, obviously. The central courtyard, where the conservatory will be constructed, the front foundation, which is the East Illinois Street section, the bar patio, or the east entrance to the banquet facilities, and then obviously the parking lot across the street. We did plans and then elevations, so I'll run through the plan views first, and I think the elevations tell actually much more. We're on the front facade of the building. The existing wall that retains an upper grade that the main building sets on, which is at a different grade than the public sidewalk, that wall remains. We are suggesting to change the material out from the base of the existing front steps to the curb at Illinois. That detailing, the stonework would be, or the masonry work would be flagstone to match the same pattern as the stoop and steps of the that exists right now as a perimeter, and then an interior field of antique street paver or reclaimed street bricks, which are the example I have on the floor, on the carpet in front of you. Whenever we talk about old street brick, that's what we're talking about, okay? They're clay pavers. The existing curb along the public sidewalk, there is actually a maintenance curb for plant material at the base of the stone wall at the public sidewalk edge already, and that is the same material. So again, we're trying to link to the existing materials of the structure and of the landscape. The entire facade will be re-landscaped. We're being very selective about what portions of the ivy will remain, but some will. There's extensive work on the windows and the timbering and the gutters and the downspouts and the drainage and the window wells. So Mark really isn't leaving us much wall of ivy to remain, but we will hug it as best we can because the owners, the architects, and the landscape architects all think of Deer Path Inn to have ivy on it. So whether it is a temporary removal and regrowth of old root or planting new, that personality element will always be part of Deer Path Inn. We are proposing to articulate the retaining wall that's along the public sidewalk now, which is constructed of land and stone. We will articulate it with piers along the lengths on either side of the entry, which I'll show you in the elevations. It's much clearer. The planting palette is very simple. It's a combination of ground covering plants, boxwood, some yews. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to preserve all of the healthy parkway trees, which are namely elms, and the sickly maples that are on the parkway. It's in the plan to replace them as part of the landscape project as well. When you move to the east end of the building, there's a reconfiguring and reshaping of the patio space that connects the pedestrian walkway from Illinois to the bar, the entrance to the banquet hall, as well as to Bank Lane. One of the things, probably the most dramatic effect on this plan that's different than at present, is that we would like to activate Bank Lane as being a link between the east entrance or the east lot line of the hotel lot to the parking lot, which is also owned by the hotel. If you've ever gone to Francesca's, you always want to park at the lot because you think it's Francesca's lot, and then you read the old beat-up sign in the corner. And we thought, well, why not just flip the entrance, have the entrance of the parking lot relate to the entrance of the hotel. It regains the parking spaces that we lose on Bank Lane. It replaces them onto Illinois. And the old ginkgo trees that are still there can stay there on Illinois. And we're proposing to break through the south end of the parking lot and allow for an easy egress in and out of the parking lot. If you've ever parked in that lot, you can, testify that it's pretty hard to get in and out. If one car parks the wrong way in that lot. There will be a planted buffer between the parking lot and Bank Lane. The existing street trees that are there that are healthy will remain. And we're following the same detailing in with the material choice within the paving, if the city lets us, is to use the same granite paver that's used in Market Square. So we're close enough in geography to Market Square. And again, we're dealing with historic architecture that we love the idea of consistently linking one icon to another icon in our town. So all of the detailing that you see with the target motif in the center, all of that is flush with asphalt pavement. There is no loose particulate matter. It's done just as they did it in the street that proved to work at Market Square. The bricks that we are proposing for the East Terrace hardscape are these old street brick, which are much more conducive to relating to the tile of the building structure itself. It also sets it in a period, and we will use the select reclaimed brick that doesn't have the major chips or issues that would create an ADA compliant issue. So it will be very easy to shovel, to walk on, won't be slippery, all those good things. If you notice along the public walk edge on the west side of Bank Lane, we're intentionally keeping the public sidewalk as concrete material, continuous, and the decorative masonry is below the curb, or next to the depressed curb where the opening is from the pedestrian area to the public street access. And then the decorative paving doesn't start until you're actually inside the courtyard. So again, trying to, when you're looking down from Deer Path down Bank Lane, or just the consistency of the neighborhood, we're keeping the looks of the sidewalks like they should look. There's no intentional jarring material change or whatever. And then the granite pavers create an apron for the parking lot on the east side. The new patio area, we're removing that freestanding fountain with the putty that exists now. That water feature is history. All of the paving materials that are used in that area are not being recycled. There's artificial brick, there's concrete, meaning concrete pavers, there's clay pavers, there's bluestone, and there's poured concrete. So we're thinking it's already a complicated space. Why complicate it further with materials? So we're cleaning it up. When you look at the detail of the patio area, it has multiple purposes. First of all, it's the secondary entrance to the hotel. It obviously is a funneling aspect for people coming in and out of the banquet hall. It's the year-round entrance and exit for the bar. If you live in town and you know that side entrance is open. And it also is a way of connecting people that walk down the public sidewalk on Illinois to the patio area. So one of the things that we're doing intentionally is we're privatizing it where we want it to be more intimate of an experience, and we're connecting it to the public access points in a very regimented way, so the hotel staff can actually monitor people coming and going. So since the pointer is dead, I'm going to try to use this mouse image. So at the north end of the patio, you can see that there's a walk access point to get one into of the patio area. And this freestanding element here that you might think is a sofa or something, it actually is a freestanding wall that will support an outdoor fireplace that faces to the south. There's a pair of masonry columns. We would like to, depending on how we can talk the mason into doing this, we love the rough stone detailing that's on the old building. The existing retaining wall at the north sidewalk edge is land and stone, and it's done the traditional way. It's not done the craggy Tudor way. It's done a more classical Georgian way. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to pick up on the detailing on the original buttress on the building right here, and use the craggy stone building of still using land and stone, but using rock face and doing it more, arts and crafts style almost. And then the piers would actually be terracotta tile topped, so with a hip detail, as would the top of this would have a shed detail, but the what you see from Illinois Road would be matching shingles. Then the enclosure is a continuation of the front foundation hedge, which is then broken by the piers, as I spoke about. Between the pier and the fireplace wall will be a pair of gates. So in outdoor spaces, there is a code that if you serve food, you have to have gates. So there's gates here, and there's actually a pair of gates right here. Okay. Typically, when it's not an event, the gates will be open. But if they decide to serve food on the patio or something, or somebody rents a space, then they know they have to close those gates. So there's a hedge and masonry column combination here. We keep the historic sign, and then from the historic sign, but not attached to the historic sign, we're proposing a stone wall with a break in the wall for a wider entrance to accommodate the banquet facility. And then again, this wall comes down and intentionally does not connect to the add-on of the hotel, because again, there's stone detailing that is there, it works, and honestly, we want to make sure that there's enough foundation planting on that section of the hotel that we can cover up some of the architecture, because it's not as beautiful as the old building. We all know that. So there is a planting space on the east and the west side of this wall, and the intention of this wall is to work much like their kind of cheap temporary iron fencing, to just separate the function from public sidewalk to hotel space. And obviously, the owners are looking to do a beautiful renovation of the place, and they're trying to use all the historic materials and doing it the right way. We said it could be a hedge or a wall, and they said, which do you like better? And Mark and I both said, a wall. They said, well, let's keep the wall. So that was exciting for us. That doesn't always happen. When you get into the courtyard area, if you were there today, first of all, you'd see snow and ugly heaters, but all of the paving material is poured aggregate, and the non-paved area are mown turf. And if you've ever been there in the summer, they never have enough paving. The lawn usually looks really cruddy. And there's a mishmash of landscape timbers, railroad ties, concrete pavers. They've built the planting area up over the top of foundation on the east and the west side. It's just kind of a landscape wreck. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is the space behind the tall evergreen hedge does not belong to the hotel. It belongs to the condos next door. So where you see these trees in the back here, that's the existing hedge that's on the condo land. Okay, so obviously, the hotel wraps in and around, but the confines of what we can change in the landscape is within the confines of this existing landscape wall and the future wall of the conservatory and the historic walls of the hotel. The dark shaded circles are just showing one where umbrella tables would be. So as you can see, as my little hand here is pointing, this is the proposed patio surface on both sides. So there is an organic edged grade level planting bed at the same grade as the patio. And then this wall and stair system here and here is existing. And we are altering the water feature element here, making it less of a catalog ad to the landscape and actually a real prominent feature. Because as you all know, people have events at the hotel. We want to have this be one of those landmark moments for the hotel that is a photo op. So the paving that you see here, the English call this crazy paving. It's a combination of paving materials. It's not just one. It's typically, true crazy paving is, the kitchen sink to, an old street brick. What we're proposing is probably a mix of flagstone or bluestone with the same brick that we're using at the East Terrace. Again, trying to, Mark's team is just continually hearkening back to the romance of the Tudor architecture and the Tudor flavor of this place. This is done, it's going to feel like you're at an English inn. I mean, that's the intention. So the idea of picking up on vocabulary that's done historically in English gardens made total sense, and it kind of makes sense why they called us too. There would be a number of permanent plantings in here, whether they be boxwood or yew, some seasonality probably with ornamental trees, something that wouldn't fruit that would cause a bird nuisance for dining guests, but there will be some seasonality between flowering and leaf color and things like that. There of course would be augmented landscape elements with containers and the like. And then Frank Ponterio's firm and ours will work cooperatively to furnish and container accessorize it as well. We have a great team on this project. We really do. So I think these are a little bit easier to see. Again, I'm hearkening back to the sequence in which I showed you before. These were all precedent images or edits of precedent images that our client asked us to show you, to give you a sense of what they saw during the process of selection. So, as I said before, the stoop and steps remains the same. The material change just occurs right here at the street. Mark's group is defining a new entry canopy for here. As you look at that retaining wall that we see here and in our drawing here, when I said that we were articulating the wall with new piers that would break the plane or the row of the wall, this very much shows you what we're talking about. The pier inserts itself into the linear length of the wall, projects a little further towards the public sidewalk. Some will be the two closest to the front stoop or the front entry of the hotel will be topped with some welcoming form of a stone pineapple. And then as you get further down, there would be planters that would create some seasonality. So there's one here, here, down here. Not at all this shape. Okay, they will be Tudor-based container shape. At the front door, we talked about having it be much more homey and eclectic, so there will be a collection of found containers with various plants. But instead of it looking like they went to Costco to do it, it's going to look like they have a gardener here. I think probably the most refreshing new design detail for the landscape here is what we're calling a wave hedge. This is actually a boxwood hedge that instead of it being flat across, it actually has an undulation. And the beauty of running something strong like this is it gives them a great mantle to decorate for the holidays. What people don't realize is there's a series of ugly window wells all along the surface of this building. And there's a new electrical condenser that goes in, a new generator. All the uglies get concealed behind the new landscape, which helps a lot. This kind of shows you a close-up of a wave hedge. And you can see, it's distinct from waving between live and dead. This hedge actually waves between tall and short. It gives you just a sense of, what you'll see here. When we get to the bar entrance, obviously existing conditions, and this just gives you a sense of how the flavor of that space will change when all of a sudden all of this is concealed from the street. Here's an example of the wall showing you here. There intentionally is no decorative piers or anything in here. We're trying not to glorify this entrance. It's a side entrance. It's a break in the wall. All the materials are fabulous. On axis, they're, like Mark had said, that there will be lattice on the stairwell roof support structure here, so there will be vining plants here. There'll be some type of a feature element, whether it be an armillary, an urn on a plinth, something. We will not be recycling those cherubs in the fountain. But you can see a sense of scale. We're introducing a new shade tree, an ornamental scaled tree that will help this behemoth of a sign not seem like it's a billboard out in the middle of nowhere. So when you start seeing the detailing in the road surface, this is very similar to what you might see if any of you folks happen to know Posey and Jake Craybill. This is granite paving with their blacktop driveway. It gives that same sense of fluidity. But just trying to show you with images, get our point across. This one traverses down the south end of the east facade of the banquet facility. This is the newest portion of Deer Path Inn. We're proposing to remove the trees that have overtaken the side of the building and again blocks views out from some of the reception areas. But as I had said here, when one's talking about connecting to a building that has this type of stone detailing, sometimes it's best just to provide a plant connection instead of a structural connection. There's an odd door here that seems to go to nowhere, but instead of making it look awkward, we're trying to make it feel almost like a folly in the context of this skinny little strip of a landscape. You can see here, as I was talking about the height and the bulk of the old sign, obviously, if one connects it with landscaping, as you can see on the lower image, it will be a much nicer experience when you're inside the courtyard, and it will be a much less cluttered experience as you drive by the courtyard. Here's just an example of a couple different versions of crazy paving. This happens to be granite cobble with bluestone. Here's the antique paver with bluestone. Here's roof tile on edge. But all the intention is to always have it be flush. There will not be stones removed for plants to grow in between. That's not good for public, particularly when there's alcohol involved or high heels. You know, it's not a private garden. It needs to have a private, intimate feel, but it has to be practical. So the stonework will be flush like this, all at the same plane, wheel overable, high heel tolerant, all those good things. And then this just gives you a sense of the profile of what these piers would look like at the north entrance to the east patio area. Instead of, again, having too much adornment, let the capping of the pier be the roof tiles. And the building's so tall, you don't get that option unless you're really coming at it from a long distance, you don't even get to see the roof because it's so high. This gives you kind of an intimate experience. Brings the materials down to earth. Oops. When you're in the main courtyard, this fountain is not original. It was brought in as an ad to make it fancier. We are proposing to remove these two trees. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to rework this wall structure, provide a larger basin so the sound of water can be more activated in the space. And we'd like to articulate the top of the wall to be higher. Instead of having a tall ornament that's at grade, just change the grade of the wall here to be able to support a stag, a deer, for Deer Path Inn. So the owner loved this Scottish deer that we found in a precedent image. And if they need to even provide a sculptor a drawing for it, this is a money shot. So they're going to make sure the right thing is there. If it's not antique, if Mark Frank or I can't find something, they were willing to have a caster made. So, and when you look at the way that the landscape was addressed in the existing slide here, you can see that the decorative aspect was just kind of along the edge of a walkway, and then they used this as auxiliary space. And this is where all the summer dining is before an event. The owner wants to make sure that all furniture can be moved aside, and this would be a place for an outdoor wedding. So we needed to repave it in a way that worked for dining, but also for events. And the leftover space, which will run predominantly on the east and the west edges of the patio, will have this kind of a flavor. It will be effusively full of foliage. It'll be subtle in coloration, but it really will give you a sense that you're in a garden. And then obviously we'll do more added interest with containered plants and seasonal interest. And that completes the landscape part.
Okay, this is the last piece of this. So there are 3 signs on the building today, and we propose to keep 3 signs on the building. So as we go through, this is the new logo and font. The first thing that you'll probably notice is that we took deer and path and combined them as one word, as it was originally, as we've gone back and looked historically at all of the old documentation for the building, it was one word. If you go to Deer Path Road, it's one word. Somewhere along the line, it became 2 words.
Isn't Deer Path School?
Deer Path School's one word too? Okay, there we go.
2.
It's 2 at Deer, yeah, it is? Okay, well, on Deer Path 1. Sometime we'll get this right. We're proposing to put it together as one word. So Deer Path, as you can see in this logo, established 1929. This icon that you see here was found in the building as a plaster decoration that's in the stairwells. No one's I'm sure we've all walked by it 100 times, and we've looked everywhere else, but we've never seen this. And it is possibly one of the most beautiful elements that were brought into the building early on when it was built. We're celebrating that and bringing that forward, that historic element forward, and using it as the icon today. So how we'd like to use that is on these 3 signs. At the very top is the sign at the entrance. The middle is the sort of the monument sign today. Monument sign is made up today of 2, this painted stag, and then Windsor Hall down below. So what we're proposing to maintain Windsor Hall, and I'll show you these in some detail in a second. And then the 3rd sign is the bar, which today is on the awning itself, stenciled on the awning, and we're proposing to have a bracket sign on a wrought iron bracket. So let's take a look at Deer Path Inn. So the Old English font today we're replacing with this font and I don't know the name of it. I'm sure it really matters. But we're looking at even keeping the old sign itself, taking it down, refurbishing it, putting new sign faces on. That's it. The monument sign, refurbishing it when we go through and refinish all of the faux half timbering on the building, we would refinish this wood as well in the same detailing, and then refurbish the Windsor Hall sign down below. But we are proposing to keep that in the Old English font, in the same size, same lettering that it is today. And then lastly, the bar. We're changing that font as well. That's the same font that we're using throughout. Somewhere along the line, this bracket got huge. Rest assured, it will not be that big. The metal bracket will not extend past the edge of the bar sign, but we're proposing to construct that sign the same as the one on the front. That would be a wood-framed sign with the painted face on it as well. So, thank you for sitting through all of this.
All right, thank you very much. I hate to ask, but is there a staff report?
Not much after that. So what's before you tonight is a request for action on several components, and obviously each of those components have many parts, which you just heard about. You would need to consider demolition of the existing garden room. There are findings in your staff report in support of that partial demolition. You would need to consider approval of the new conservatory parapet, that replacement of the garden room, consideration of the modification to the bar entrance, consideration of the various hardscape landscape pieces, and consideration of the signage. And just a few comments. We have, when the idea came up about really trying to connect the parking lot on the east side and really make it feel like part of the Deer Path Inn and part of the entry sequence, we did have conversations about Bank Lane. Bank Lane is a private or public street, public right-of-way. We would need to, as part of this, do some type of license agreement. There has in the past been a license agreement to allow the Deer Path Inn to use some portions of Bank Lane. So it's something that's very doable. There's a process to deal with liability and maintenance, and I don't know what all those solutions will be, but there absolutely is a process to deal with that. With respect to signage, as you heard, the 3 signs on the building are being replaced with 3 signs. This is a very large building, and if we directly applied our sign regulations in the code, and if we're working with someone else, there could be a proposal to do something much more significant in size. So I think the fact that what we're seeing is really a very modest signage proposal, and it really will be the landscaping and the original inn that will be showcased in a much enhanced manner over and above what exists there today. You do have findings in your staff report and a recommendation in support of issuing a certificate of appropriateness. And again, that certificate would, the single certificate could approve these various components if you determine that's appropriate. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so Kathy, I have a couple of questions to lead us off. Can you just remind us the action that we took last year?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we saw the garden room before, including demolition. Was that not acted on prior?
You actually didn't take action. You had requested some further details. So the action you took in December, I think it was December, really had to do with, much as you did with Market Square, the restoration work itself.
Okay, thank you. And then on the license agreement, thanks for clearing that up. I was going to ask you about that. Would that also be the case at the front sidewalk where you extend paving into the city concrete work? So you'd handle that in a similar manner?
Yes, and not unlike a single-family house where an owner chooses to do pavers in the parkway. We have a hold harmless agreement. My guess is we probably have a single license agreement or something a little bit more formal.
All great stuff, thanks. And then just a question for the petitioner on the signage. I'm looking at the drawing, it's a little bit different than you described it. So you said that the bar sign would be wood framed like the Deer Path Inn sign, the main sign, not the, yes, there you go. Like that one?
Yes.
So that same spirit, but painted sign. All of these are painted signs. Yep.
Correct.
All right, any other questions from commissioners for the
I have a
staff
couple
or petitioner? Sure,
questions.
please.
So Kathy, so Bank Lane would be open to public access through that? There's no restriction there. In terms of the licensing, you're just talking about the design and the pavers but there's still going to be, just through traffic available through Bank Lane.
Correct. There hasn't been any discussion about closing off Bank Lane. I don't believe that's the intention, but it would be to allow a different pavement surface and deal with insurance responsibilities. We'll probably talk about snow plowing, and depending on the materials.
Typically
I think
maintenance.
one of the concerns would be, because it kind of lends itself pretty well to having a valet parking area or car drop-offs, to get to the bar or unpack or whatever. And I think I use that road actually quite a bit to just shortcut some of the traffic on Green Bay. And I think there's probably some others in the town that do that. So it may not be our purview, but I think it's something to think about. Because that design element to me really is intimate. I don't think we want to choke off that by fusing the two east-west properties together. I understand the intent, and it's nice, but I would have a concern there and a question just on how the regular use of that and their intent would be consistent with that objective. And Mark, the other thing, I was kind of yearning for a perspective of the patron walking into the bar on the north elevation. I don't think there's anything in our packet. And so if you could maybe, I think on a top-down aerial view, I don't get the sense that it's enclosed, but I get that it is. But can you talk about the north elevation of what somebody would see when they walk in
Yeah,
to
that's
that
a good-
structure
that's
and
a good-
down?
It is a confusing entrance. so
It's
that's
pretty
a-
confusing. Is there a door? Am I going to just walk down the steps? I mean, what's the north elevation going into the bar?
It is what it is today. You walk down the steps and there's a door.
So it's open. So what's that structure? I mean, is there a roof to the left?
Yes.
Is that connected on top vertically with a roof, or is it just a panel? There's some conflicting design elements based on the aerial view and the east elevation. So if you just describe the entrance and what.
I think what's confusing is that we think that when you look at this drawing, it's easy to imagine the surface of that wall being west of the other surface. But you're looking
Right.
at one wall, there's an open
Right.
enclosure, and you enter it, and then you turn left and you go down, right?
Right.
You enter that, the gable structure
Right.
between two posts,
Correct.
which are projecting east of the stairwell.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
right.
Get it? So there's no wall there. You walk between the two posts, and then you turn
Oh,
left
I
down the stairs.
understand your question.
Yeah.
You're asking
There you go.
what's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a post that is proud of the wall
Yeah.
itself, of the fireplace. And you can walk on both sides of it.
Okay.
It's open on both sides. That's
Okay, I got
correct.
it. So
Yeah.
so the depth, it's then a shelter, if you will, or just a roof with open air.
Right, and so that
It's not a
light-
closed structure that
That light
you're
fixture-
entering into.
Essentially, the footprint is what it is today.
I got it.
And Jim, that light fixture is inside.
Is
of
hanging
that
inside of
enclosure.
it,
Yeah.
Yes.
and the window is against the wall of the
That's
existing
correct.
structure. Okay. I didn't know if it was like a little, hut that.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, it's a very.
You got to picture it as it is.
Yeah,
today.
because if you go back to that, that's kind of what it intimates.
This is, what you see here.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Is the footprint of what we're proposing for the future. Yeah. But not to look like.
Okay.
Right.
And the other question is, Mark, how much, what incremental information did we receive tonight on the garden room as opposed to the last time you were in front of us?
The details,
So
the sections,
can you walk us
the
through those?
elevations.
Because I think we all, I was favorably inclined to the design and the intent, but I just tried to figure out, well, what was incremental from our last time? So could you maybe just skim through
so-
those? And it's not the whole thing, but just the stuff that's incremental.
So last time we showed you the existing photos.
Yeah.
And sort of my original sketch to start creating
Yeah.
the design intent. We then, what we've added to that is all of the detailing that we got from the conservatory manufacturer in England, Town and Country. So we've layered all of their detailing onto our elevation here, and that's what you see.
Okay.
As well as a section. And all of the connection details are figured out and everything. This is more of a schematic section to give you an idea.
And based on their details in terms of the bottom-up process and your top-down design, were there any, I guess, could they enable what you envisioned, or was there,
oh,
or was there a
absolutely.
delta and they said, oh, that's a great design, but you got to make this, and this compromise, or do you feel like it was a nice fit?
I think it went beyond a nice fit. They enhanced and created greater value to our design because this is what they do all the time. So there are a couple things that I think are really important to point out here. if you look at this section, today, the roof of the garden room is right here. So, and we've all sat out in that garden room, and you barely can look out the windows. They're so low. You have to sit down to look out the windows, or at least. So these are the arched windows with all the cames, with all the lead glass cames. All of that will be exposed. All of that is going to be sent out as part of the glass restoration to the conservators who will rebuild all of that. So that's really, really important. The other is that if you've sat in that room today, you'll know, depending on whether it's cold outside or hot outside, you're cold or hot in the room. So we'll be able to take care of all of that. And this was no small undertaking to be able to get the mechanical systems to really work and hide them so no one will ever know that they're there. And then this is their glass structure itself. So I mean, there's just another level of detail here for you. Yes.
First of all, what is the finish color on the aluminum of this?
So it is aluminum. The details have a profile to it. And the color is the same color that we're proposing to refinish all of the windows in the building, all the steel windows, which the color that we've selected is patinaed gray. So it's a very dark, last time I had the section with me, I flew in from out of town and I didn't have a chance to grab that section. But it is, and it's the right color, but it is it's to look like the patinaed gray that you would have on the lead in the cames
So it's like
themselves.
powder coated?
It is powder coated, yeah. And we're
Also-
actually upgrading that powder coating to like 2603, 23. I forget the name of the system, but we get the 30-year warranty on it.
On the landscape plan, there was a dotted line out in front of the greenhouse. Is there a canopy that's intended to go out there?
Yes. So on the front edge of this, which doesn't show on this section, but it may show on the, so it shows right along here, there is a 6-inch section of aluminum that will be covered with a roll-down canopy. Today, there's a roll-down canopy. It doesn't roll down anymore. Or actually, I guess it rolls down. It doesn't roll up anymore. So, but it will extend 6 feet out. So, and I can go to that. Yeah. So it is right at this front edge here, right under the gutter. And that is, there's, the round piece is right there. That's the roll. That is let me see. And it would be in the same fabric, the spruce awning, sunbrella awning material, that all the other, the front awning would be.
So there is a framework or something that folds out to hold it up? Is that it? Or-
Yeah.
Mhm. And
Yeah, it's
and
the
will-
same that's there today.
Okay.
Same system,
So
just a replacement.
it's going to
of
be
that
on a
system.
slope, so when it's down, it's got to kind of cover up that grid trellis area a little bit.
Yeah, so I can, it does. It covers up the transom windows. Yeah. They have a different name for those in England, though. They don't call them transoms. Yes.
Just-
And here is that dotted line where that
Right.
awning
That's what I,
would roll out.
And you're just using that for more dining space and shade, or what would you be using that? What do you need
It
the awning
is
for?
shade. Yes, if you've ever sat back there and it's a southern exposure and it just beats down on you. So we'll do two things. It will protect the people sitting outside here as well as the first row of seating inside the conservatory. We are also, the conservatory comes with an interior shade
well,
structure
that's what I was
as
going to
well.
ask, because I was going to say, you got to have a lot coming
Yes.
through the windows, so.
For sure.
Just an aside on the landscaping, how long does it take to make that neat wavy hedge be real?
Better be quick. Okay.
The owner won't give us more than the time it takes to prune.
Okay.
So what one does is
You just start with
buy
big ones
you
and
buy different
that
height
way.
plants, and then
Oh,
you
okay.
clip them all. Yeah.
Interesting.
And just to support the awning a little bit, just for my 2 cents worth, we had a big discussion about experiencing the garden all the time from the garden room. So by not having to put a whole bunch of umbrellaed tables and big chair
Near the-
sets
Near the building.
closer to the building, you can see that we've put the larger umbrella tables further out, so everybody gets a garden view, not just the people that are outside.
Thanks. Other questions from the commissioners?
I had a question on the Bank Lane apron, just real quick. Just want to make sure, I noticed that you had like a note about a new curb going in on there, and just wanted to make sure that there was a handicap access. It wasn't a curb, it was actually just a ramp that you were going to be having from the parking lot into the patio? You know, right in front of that fountain there.
From the parking lot to the public sidewalk, or from the
Wanted to
street
make sure, I
to
noticed
the
on
patio?
the drawings, it said new curb. I can't just find out where I am. Where am I looking?
Is it this drawing?
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure that's a ramp right in the middle there, that opening. Is that how you get, is that ADA accessible?
Right here,
Okay.
right here, the curb is depressed.
Mm-hmm.
This is the grade of the public sidewalk, as it is for ADA compliance, and by the time you're here, you're flush.
Okay,
So
okay,
there's no step, there's no ramp in brickwork,
okay.
except for pitch.
I just want to check. And then I wanted to talk about the front awning. You're replacing that? So is it a different shape? Is it a different color? Is it, you know, I look at it now and it covers up so much of the architecture of the front door. Was there any thought to reducing the amount of awning on there? Because there's such
No.
a cool, like, front porch
So we
element
talked
there.
about this last year in December, and it was part of that presentation. We're replacing that awning one for one with a new structure, because the structure that's there has been bolted together and is not painted well and all of that type of thing. And the detailing of that awning structure just has sort of, it bolted on everywhere. So we're replacing that with a new, well-designed, the configuration is exactly the same, but it will be a much better constructed awning that's there. But it is exactly the same footprint that you see today.
So do you have the side panels down all year round, or do you take them up? You know, and there's a little porch detailing
So
on the front.
that's a really good question. They do not take them up now. But we would absolutely propose that those side panels come off in the summer. There's no need for them in the summer.
Because with those side panels down and the dark awning, you kind of lose the definition of that front, and you lose the architecture in it. It looks like a black hole in this beautiful building. So anything you can do to reduce the amount of awning, I think, there, and enhance that architecture of the front door, I think would just improve the property tremendously.
Okay.
Other questions?
Oh, I had another question on I'm sorry, on the patio. I forgot to ask you. There's a lamp post on your patio right now. Are you keeping, in the side patio on the Bake Lane, are you keeping that lamp post?
No.
So is that a city?
There are city lampposts around the street.
Yeah.
Then there is an added lamppost, here, I can pull up the existing. This one is a city lamppost, I believe. Is that right, or?
Looks like one.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
look like one.
That one
That one stays.
remains.
Okay, because that wasn't in your other drawing.
There's another light somewhere else here. Or
there.
there are two of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would remain.
Okay, so that fits into your drawing on the bottom, the proposed bar patio view? Because I don't see them in that drawing.
They're actually on the photo underneath. We drew the new, we didn't redraw that.
They're in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're right
You can see
here
the
is
one.
one, and the other, yeah, it's kind of hard to see it, but
Yeah.
it's right
Oh,
there.
I see. Okay, there's one there. Okay. All right.
Then Mark, the patio surface and the the surface and the routing of the sidewalks in this picture, they're essentially staying the same in terms of the footprint of the new design?
Yes.
There's no condensing or enlarging of the, so there's no condensing of the space that is Bank Lane Artery?
No, the only real change is on the east side of Bank Lane. You can see that dotted line here.
Yeah.
This is where the parking bay is now. And we would take from that parking spot to change this contour for this entrance.
Okay.
And this parking spot exists presently.
Yeah. So how many fewer parking spots are in the east parking spot now? Right, in the new design, given the current, just?
Well, how about just collectively?
Collectively, you're not losing any.
You're not losing any?
We're trading Bank Lane spots for Illinois spots.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, and Jim, this Bank Lane's a very, very important street to the Deer Path Inn because of the parking structure behind. It is also where all of the services for all the deliveries. So the traffic flow through here is we have to maintain that traffic flow. One of the nice things, though, is that with people running back and forth all the time, one of our goals is to calm that traffic a little bit. So, guys like you who come flying through, no, I'm just kidding. But I do it as well. We all do it. So who come through here, when you see that change in the paving, and you'll understand that the landscape, oh, something's happening here, I need to slow down. So it's a great calming element for the traffic through here.
All right, now's an opportunity for the public to comment, if anyone would like to. Do I see any public comment? Excellent. All right, we can deliberate if we like. You can keep asking questions if you want to.
Yeah, the only other question I was going to ask, and this is a nod to Susan's concern in the first meeting, and I usually don't bring these things up, but the stucco on the building, and I think Steve was presenting the stucco, and I know there's a lot of touch point and finish work, but the coloring and maybe the different texture and feel and look of that. And I'm just curious if that was revisited, or I'm asking on behalf of Susan. And also, if you think about some of the new elements that you're introducing to it in terms of the landscaping and the prettying up of the curb appeal, does it bring, in your opinion, more emphasis or eyes to that stucco unevenness? And
so there are two stucco systems, as we talked about. The cementitious stucco that is on the historic part of the building, and then this addition which has ephes. There is some repair that needs to be done to that ephes, which we're doing, and and I think Craig mentioned this, that we're pulling a lot of the ivy off the building, contrary to everyone's wishes, but that ephes, or the ephes and the cementitious stucco, will be recolored so that they will match. But all of this on the addition is intended to remain as ephes.
So just to follow up on that, and Susan, I don't think you were here for the conversation, or were you? Yeah.
No, I was the one that brought it up.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I don't like that color.
Really, it's really more of a landscape question, because we did talk about that last time, but I'm curious if you had any consideration to ways to incorporate ivy back, maybe to help hide some of the, what I would call the new stucco, either by live walls or wire systems or something like that. Whether any of that would make any sense, or if you've thought of that and dismissed it. I'm just curious. I mean, it's a wonderful scheme and wonderful landscape plan, so I'm not criticizing it at all. I'm just curious if that entered your deliberations at all. Because I get what Craig was saying about sometimes, when you're joining an old building with a new building, if you will, you just confuse the junction by screening it with some landscaping. I think Frank Lloyd Wright said that in a much more eloquent way. But it was something that you may consider, or you may have considered. Seems like there might be some opportunity to do that. Maybe actually not even with ivy so much as with some taller plantings too. So I don't know if you had thought of that, or if you, again, it's not a criticism, it's just really a question.
One of the things that the graphics are showing is what the landscape will look like when it's installed. So one of the things that you're not seeing is maturity. You know,
Yeah.
we're sizing things so they work. I think that if the ephes surface can withstand the rigors of Boston ivy, it's a no-brainer that all of us would want some ivy on the new stucco.
Yeah.
Not the new as in
No, I understand.
repaired, but the
Yeah.
new building.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons
And
why
it's-
we're taking off so much off the facade of the building, where Susan was talking about how dark the entry is, one of the reasons it's so dark is not just the curtains and the awning, but all that English ivy that is dark green. And if you look at the bays that are on either side of the front door, they're asymmetric, but there's even different brick underneath it. Nobody really knows there's this kind of clinker common brick underneath because the ivy's covering it up, and beautiful timber detailing. We're trying to reveal the best aspects and conceal the ugliest. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as the architect says it's not going to structurally affect the stucco, Craig Bergman Landscape Design will gladly contribute ivy if it's not in the budget.
While you're standing there, one more question for you. The difference between English ivy and Boston ivy?
Are you using this professionally or personally?
No, just no Latin, please.
English ivy is evergreen. It stays green all year round. Boston ivy is what's at Wrigley Field that changes color.
Excellent,
drops
thank
its
you.
leaves.
Didn't know that.
Good to know. Who knew?
Other deliberations from folks?
Well, I think that the plan is so well thought out. I mean, I'm just so impressed with all your work and your detail, and the owner clearly is concerned with preserving this historic building and the historic features of it. So it's a great plan. I don't think there's any question about the demo of that garden room. I think that's okay, because it's really a detriment to the building. And the conservatory seems very well thought out, detailed, authentic, much more useful probably in future. I can imagine a wedding in there. Oh my gosh, it'd be beautiful. Landscaping seems really well thought out. I just love the corner now, Bank Lane Corner. It looks so intimate and just lovely, and someplace you'd really want to spend some time with. Even if you're having an event in the big hall, you're spilling out onto that patio. So much more useful. And the connection between the parking lot and the building just makes so much sense, and is easier for, like if you're going to Francesca's and you're not parking there. So I just would like you to revisit that front entryway and look at that awning and just kind of, freeing up some of the architecture there so we can see it better. I really think that too much awning is not going to do the building any good. And if the owner is really, intent on freeing up some of this architecture, enhancing things, pulling down the ivy so you can see more of the architecture, consider that awning too, and lightening it up a little bit. You do need it for protection, I understand that, but you just need to lighten it up some more. The stucco, of course, you told us the last meeting you really are not planning on doing anything with that stucco, but we got to do something to enhance it. It really is a deterrent from the rest of the building. And so on this new part on that Windsor Hall, ivy probably would help. I don't know. The one thing I worry about when you repaint it, too, in the same color, is that they're going to age differently. So you're going to have a different patina even going forward on this Windsor Hall than you will on the old building. So I guess just revisit that section. And, you're thinking about the longevity of that, the fake stucco on Windsor Hall. When are you going to replace it? When you do revisit replacing it, are you going to go with the cement stucco, or maybe that's maybe the time when they plan on doing that is, try to match the original stucco then. But all in all, I think it's fabulous, and thank you for all your hard work. It's going to look wonderful and be a great asset to our community, I think.
I just wanted to say I'm delighted to see the owner of the Deer Path Inn investing in this thorough but historically sensitive improvement of the property that we all enjoy.
Here. Other comments?
And I'm supportive of the petition. I do think, as exciting as the conjoin is, I do think the traffic and I can just envision, even if there's warnings to go in there, that the more activity it garners, I think the higher the chances of just some traffic issues. But it seems like the city can work through that. So I'm supportive of everything.
I think it's a great job. The one thing that's always bugged me about this is that corner, and now it has a sense of place. You've helped define that area, and I think it's beneficial. You're cleaning up the facade. The ephes portion, if you can plant it out, great. When you tap on it, it has that hollow sound. When you tap on the cementitious stucco, it has a nice solid sound. So, yeah, if you can experiment with some landscaping there, some creeping ivy to eat up the entire addition, that'd be
English.
wonderful. English ivy.
So I guess I'll throw one more comment in. Since Jim mentioned the bank lane, I have to counter that a little bit with my own opinion. I actually think that that's a really nicely thought out feature. I like the change in the pavement there. I don't think that would work necessarily in a lot of places in the city because of the fact that it does kind of personalize that entrance for the hotel here. But I think it's a nice balance of public-private kind of use of that space, and I really think that was a really nice solution. So I would encourage the city to not discourage that in other places where you have the same kind of parameters. I think it's nice. And then a cautionary tale would be that custom HVAC unit. That sounds like some rolling up of the sleeves on that one still, because you've got intake and exhaust separations to consider and ductwork and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate the intent of that. I hope the execution is as good as the intent. So I think that'll be challenging for you. But other than that, I think I'll ask for a motion.
I've prepared one if you
I'd
wish.
love to hear it.
Based on the findings detailed in the applicable staff report dated January 28, 2015, which document that the project complies with the standards in Chapter 51, Historic Preservation of the City Code, and incorporating the materials submitted and presented by the petitioner and the testimony and the deliberations of the commission at this public meeting as additional findings, I move that the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness approving 1, the demolition of the garden room, 2, its replacement with an English garden conservatory, 3, the modification of the east entrance to the lower level, 4, landscape and hardscape enhancements, and 5, updated signage as detailed on the plans presented to the Commission for the Deer Path Inn property located at 255 Illinois Road, and that the Commission condition its approval on the conditions of approval enumerated in the 2 numbered paragraphs on page 5 of the applicable staff report.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Travers. Thank you for that. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Atkinson. Is there, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations. Very interesting project. Look forward to seeing that done. Let's see, now is an opportunity for the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on non-agenda items, if there are any. I see none. And also, let's see if there's any other additional announcements or information from the staff.
Just wanted to mention that I do think at your next meeting, which will be February, I expect that you'll see the next phase of the Market Square project come forward too. So you're kind of seeing both Deer Path Inn and Market Square come to you in various phases.
Great.
So that'll also be an exciting project.
Look forward to that. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved. So moved. Is there a second? Is there a vote? Everybody's go home.
Yes.
Good night. Thank you.